got them?
They're on, yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We were having a little technical difficulty. Time being 5:54, I would like to call the Economic Development Subcommittee meeting, to March 2nd meeting, to order. There's a note to residents. All citizens are welcome to attend public board and committee meetings in person. Additionally, in an effort to maximize citizen engagement opportunities, citizens will be able to continue to participate remotely via phone or Zoom. The meetings will also be live streamed by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast 11 and Verizon Channel 29. The phone number to call in is 1-929-205-6099. The meeting number is 878-1855-8530, then press the pound key. The link to the Zoom is also on the agenda that is posted on the website. I would just like to remind people that we're going to conduct this meeting with respect and civility, and we are being recorded by Franklin TV and possibly others. Tonight we have an EDC Plus Steering Committee meeting. With me in the chambers is Councilor Frangillo, Councilor Sheridan, Councilor Jones, Planning Board Chair Greg Rondo, Planning Board Clerk is Beth Wheeling, and on the Zoom we have the ZBA Chair Bruce Hunchard. Did I get everybody? Okay. So our first agenda item tonight is a discussion from MAPC, but I believe that's going to be from Brian to give us a little bit of an update about what we can expect for our March 7th meeting, for the Franklin for All Public Forum. So I'm going to throw it over to Brian.
Thank you very much. Just to let you know, Emma from MAPC, we decided that she won't be coming to all of your EDC meetings, save resources for other items, instead of using up all her hours on the meetings. So, and Amy, who's the project manager, is on vacation, so you're stuck with me tonight. So,
All right, guys, get ready. Get tough. Sorry.
But anyway, so as far, first I'd like to thank anybody that has been advocating for the forum coming up on Monday. It will be in this room, 7 o'clock at night next Monday, and we have so far over 120 individuals that have signed up, and I know that Lily Rivera actually sent out a newsletter today, and on it was, please sign up for it. So I think we'll probably get some more. The majority are over Zoom. Of the 125-ish, there were about 85 that were over Zoom. So,
Okay.
And others were undecided. There were some others. So we shouldn't have any problem overloading this room. But I'm hoping that at least some, if not all, of the steering committee members can attend in-house if possible. You can attend either way, great. But if you're in-house, it would be good. The way I'm looking at it is we'll open up on Zoom also early. They'll, run a message or so that we'll be with you at 7 or whatever. But, for 15 minutes or so, or 10, 15 minutes before the meeting, if people can, welcome people into the meeting and have a general discussion and talk about a few things here and there. But then we'll get going with the meeting. I just asked Chairman Hamlin if she would do an introduction for us, and then would turn it over to Emma at MAPC. Emma has two other people on MAPC. They're all Zooming in remotely. They'll be handling the Zoom meeting and the presentation in general. When we get to questions and answers, which is after the presentation, I'll be handling anything on this end. I'll try to, if people put their hand up, I will call, every other, what goes Zoom back to the in-house to Zoom back until there are no more questions. And just to let you know, Zoom will be, it'll be on Franklin TV also.
Okay.
And I think it runs to about 8:30, correct, yeah. So it's on officially until 8:30. If there's still people that want to comment after that, even if MAPC is done and they're out of the way, we'll take over the Zoom meeting here, and we'll keep doing it until people are all talked out.
Okay.
We're not gonna shut them off until people have well, hopefully, it won't be too late after 9:30 or so, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so that's a general plan of what we're doing. As far as the steering committee, like I said, thank you for advocating, and if we can get a few more people out there, that'd be great. And to let you know that part of the process, MAPC is doing a variety of things. You must have seen their zoning 101 document, those type of things. They're doing a variety of different things. And one of the things that they're doing is a survey, which will be introduced at the meeting itself.
Okay.
Okay? So right after the presentation, if people actually want to go on, they can actually fill out the survey at that point with their cell phones or at home or whatever the case may be. And that's the way they wanted to do it. I thought we could do it a week earlier, but they prefer starting it on the day. The survey is set up electronically, so you can actually if you have a question about a zoning district, or there'll be a list of the description of the zoning districts, what they are. What is a C1 district? It'll have the picture of the map. It'll have things of that nature. So they'll also be able to link back to the presentation on Monday night. Once by Tuesday or Wednesday, they'll be able to watch the presentation if they do want to, or if they want to review. If they did and they wanted to review it and watch it again, or watch pieces of it, they can do that. So those are some of the things. There'll be a survey link that'll be distributed, and of course we have the project web page that will be updated with all of these things, additional links. So I guess and that's pretty much it. I just wanted to mention that since the last meeting, we finished up the focus groups that the MAPC held. I hear they were good. I am not involved, so I wanted to stay clear of it. I don't want people thinking, oh, Brian's here, so I don't want to say anything. I want to make sure that it's, that the public, the people in these groups actually have the opportunity to say what they want freely. And so I understand we had four good groups, and I don't know if there's any additional comments from anybody in the town at all about any zoning issue, about any downtown development, housing, anything, and they want to provide input. You can do it in any way. You don't have to wait for the survey. You can do a survey plus a letter plus emails. You can do anything you want. These steering committees not really set up for gaining public input in a way, but that doesn't stop you from providing comment on any of the issues if you'd like to, and if anybody's in the audience or on Zoom, they're free to, obviously, at you have the reins, though. I'm not going to. So, obviously, it's your meeting. So,
Yeah.
But we didn't set it up. We set it up for the steering committee to just see what we're doing, give us some guidance. When we get into the document and the planning part itself, there'll be a little bit more activity. You'll be reviewing things once in a while, but feel free to to provide MAPC or the planning department with any comments and any input you want. And maybe I could ask now if you have any questions. On this handout that I had here, it is really for the facilitator. It's an agenda for them, but it is, just so you know what we're doing, and is the reason.
Could I interrupt you for a second,
By all
Brian?
means.
Can we get one to Bruce?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you email him a copy? Is that okay, Bruce?
Sure.
That's fine.
Okay. I don't want to forget him out there. There he is. It's sort of it's a Franklin for All public forum, sort of informational sheet. So, but you'll see it when you get it. It has it has an agenda in there as well. Right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So we all know what's happening when. There's like a timeline in the back and everything.
Right, right. Yeah, the MAPC really takes the time to think everything out, every step all the way through, and that's, you know, that's what they do, and that's fine. But it is for the facilitators and the people in general. It's not really I mean, even though it is a public document, because I introduced it, it's not meant to be a public document. It's just something for the people running,
Okay.
running the meetings and things.
Okay. I would like to thank Emma and her group for I asked for a link to the newsletter, if we could like send it out, and I got that link, and things are getting posted on the website. For the meeting recording, will that be on the Franklin for All website, or will you have that link on the
That's a good question. I will
on the
ask.
town website? Like, where should we?
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
guide
first of all, if you signed up for, if you've already registered, you will get the link information in an email before the meeting. I would expect that they would have sent it out already, but probably not. So, so you will get that information. For people that haven't signed up, I guess the thing to do would be to maybe post the meeting, and we can just put it right up on our calendar.
The video of the meeting?
No, we're talking about the actual, the meeting posting, you know, the posting of the meeting itself, you know. We'll put it on our calendar, and that way they can have the link.
I was actually talking about the video of the meeting, like Jamie
Oh, all
Jamie
right.
said.
I'm sorry.
But I like
Okay.
the idea of
Yeah.
of having the link
Yes.
available, just like a regular town council meeting. You know, you can hit the agenda and log
Right,
in.
right. To get to the meeting. After the fact, yes, that will be in multiple places, the link
Okay.
to get to the.
And the survey as well?
recording. And the survey,
Okay,
yes.
all right. Does anyone have any questions for Brian? You guys are all, has everybody signed up? I haven't signed up
think
yet,
they-
so I just assumed I was the,
We can just add +7.
okay, add +7?
Copy
Okay.
list.
And I had another question, and now I forgot it, but, Bruce, out there, do you have any questions?
I got a lot of questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
I
we
guess
can
that's
hear
my
you.
question. Okay. All right, great. I got a new set of earphones here. I just wanted to make sure they were working. So the steering committee is going to make some suggestions when all this is done to the council on what maybe there'd be some sort of zoning changes or something like that. Is that how this is going to work?
I'm gonna throw that over to Jamie, okay?
Bruce, that's correct. So ultimately, the report, after all the sessions, the forums, you know, we hope to have another one. What we're going to do is there'll be a report, they'll come out with some recommendations. You know, and the recommendations that MAPC puts forward, you can either move those onto the council as this group, this steering committee. You can also take their suggestions and modify them. You know, it's not like you have to do exactly what they tell you to do. But it's to give everybody an idea of a spectrum of a range of choices and ideas that come out of these sessions on what to look forward to over probably the next 5 or 10 years. So we expect there to be a lot of recommendations, and that's correct, Bruce. This group will recommend them on or not onto the full town council and planning board for consideration.
Okay, great. Does anybody want to hear what my ideas are of the downtown center?
Yes.
3 minutes.
I was gonna say, wait,
blocking
Teresa,
you.
We've been waiting for this moment for months.
Well, not really, but I mean, you know, everybody, everybody assumes that this is going to end up like Hyannis or Falmouth or
Yeah.
some little quaint little town center. You got to remember, and some of these other towns have the same thing. We have a state highway that runs right through 3/4 of it. You know, Route 140. It's a state highway, no matter what you do. You know, the way I see it, no matter what you do, they're all going to end up. Probably any developer is going to end up in front of the ZBA to begin with, because are the restrictions that they got to go with. I mean, if you want somebody to come in, a developer with, that's going to spend some money, and whether you call it beautification or development of the downtown area, they're going to have to spend some money to acquire property. There isn't a lot of property there. A lot of the biggest one single piece, I think, is owned by Rockland Trust, and that was for sale a couple of years ago, and the deal never consummated. But probably because of the cost. Now, if you want some housing, you know, if somebody's going to build housing, I'm not so sure that that's the most economical way to develop the downtown, because of what you're going to get back for it, what the developer's going to get back for it. And let's just clear the air that all the downtown development is based upon what a developer wants to do or how much money they want to spend. The town can want A to Z, but, you know, they have to make a decision when they're going to get it. And I was really, not taken back, but I got this thing that shows the zoning when it came in, and most of the properties that were built downtown were built pre-zoning. So that's why they are what they are. And I don't think you're going to get anybody to come in. You know, a couple of the largest landowners, other than Rockland Trust, you know, one guy owns the old J.J. Newberry's, which Jamie didn't know what that was until I explained it to him one day. You know, he's been trying to do something for a long time. But, you know, and then there was talk about putting a parking garage or getting the air rights from the MBTA and going there. I mean, I go back a long way when they proposed urban renewal a long time ago. Maybe if they did that, the downtown would look different now. Maybe it would be what everybody wants. What everybody wants and what everybody's going to get, probably two different things. Because like I said, some of the buildings, the older buildings in town are probably going to have to be torn down or renovated quite extensively to make anything work for anybody that wants to invest any money in the center of town. In my opinion, if you didn't have the two banks and the post office in the center of town, you might have a ghost town. You know, because one of the latest ones to move out was was it the blind people, or not blind? I mean blinds, Venetian blinds, or drapery people.
Okay.
They
well,
moved down. They moved out, not the blind. They moved out down to you know, East Central Street, next to the what is it, pet care thing, the pet sales. And I don't want to say Petco because I don't think it's that, but you know, anybody that's coming, you know, you're going to have to reduce the setbacks. At one time, commercial one was 0 setbacks all around. I understand for residential, you might want to have a parking aspect in that, but you know, you have to remember, you can't make it so restrictive that nobody's ever going to come in and do anything downtown. When you're talking about the heights of the buildings, just remember that there was recently a couple of buildings put up on East Central Street or right at the beginning of town. Those are 4 stories. They're probably about 50 feet. Dean Bank, for instance, is just about, you know, according to the president's admissions, almost 50 feet in height, somewhere around that vicinity. So, you know, when you're talking about 4 stories and 50 feet in height, you know, that's what you're looking at. I'm not sure what the building across the street, how high that is, or the Victor's shoe store over there, how high that particular building is. But, you know, nobody's going to come in and build if they can't get the square footage on the small lots that are available in the center of town. You know, we had somebody come in to try it. They were rebuffed a little bit by the planning, who was the planner at the time. You know, she put it out there. She was afraid that nobody was going to finish the project. And you saw where that went. They finished the Franklin Furniture Building. Came out very nice. I think that's 3 stories, but Dean ended up buying it. You got a couple of commercial things downstairs, and you got apartments or condos or whatever you want to call them upstairs that Dean uses for Dawn. You know, across the street they were going to do something like that, but the town was in a quandary about how to determine what the floor height was, or how many floors they were going to have, because the back of that building goes in on a parking lot level. So there was a big quandary over that. They tore the theater off the building. They built a beautiful building around the corner, first building on Summer Street. You know, and then they built condos out in the back. But, you know, that was a development that everybody thought they were going to tear down that whole block and build something new. It never came to fruition. I just don't see that, you know, being from the development side years past, that I'm just curious as to how somebody's going to come in and build what people want, other than a quaint downtown. But like I said, if the post office wasn't there and the 2 banks, you probably wouldn't have as much traffic there, other than the fact that you're on Route 140 going through the center of town, so. And, and if you leave it the way it is, everybody's gonna be before the ZBA looking for some sort of relief, so. And that way, I'm not sure that they're gonna do that, because it's just another, bite at the apple. Some of the planning board meetings, people have been proposing things almost similar in nature. This guy needs a traffic study. One guy proposes giving money to the town in lieu of if they gotta change the light sequencing. Whereas you got another project up the street that's almost the same thing, higher, almost the same number of units. That one doesn't even mention, I didn't watch the whole meeting, but I saw some of it, heard about it, so. Everybody's gotta get their ducks in a row. I think zoning is probably the best way to get to it, but, what kind of relief you're gonna give everybody, and setbacks and that stuff. Everybody would like to be able to walk down beside each building and stuff like that, but, if you want the center of town to be rebuilt, when it says Franklin for all, but it's only gonna be Franklin for the people that wanna go in a quaint New England town. But anyway,
Okay,
anybody's
Bruce,
got any questions, I'll be more.
I'm gonna politely, I'm
that's
gonna
fine.
politely cut you off because you're over time.
That's fine.
But
Okay.
thank you for your opinions and your input. This is really important. I think this is the beginning of the journey to see if there are different ways to do the things that we're trying to do. That's, I think, what we're trying to find out, like what are the potential solutions. But there is a new book, there's a bookstore in Emma's Quilts. You're talking about the quilt store.
Okay.
But there is
Yeah,
a
the quilt
bookstore
store, yeah.
there now, so.
Okay.
But that's good.
Yeah.
So there are some things
Yeah.
down there. Does anybody else have any? Beth Wehrling?
Thank you. I love our quaint downtown, actually. I live there, visit it quite often, go to all the stores, the restaurants. It's really fabulous. And I'm looking forward to whatever it is that we do to enhance it and get more people there and more businesses, however we end up doing that. If nothing happens down there, we keep having the same businesses that are going in there, the bookstores, the restaurants, and everything else that's happening down there, then I'm excited about that too. I'm sure we'll have developers that do want to come down there. In fact, we had one before the planning board just on Monday that is making an investment in the downtown, which is very exciting. And my one question, I guess, kind of go back to the first meeting, and I apologize for missing the last meeting, I was on vacation.
It's okay. It's okay.
But I think I might have asked the question then. I'm just curious, has our district for what we're studying been finalized? Are we doing the large area? Are we looking at narrowed down areas or focusing on any small segments? Or is it the entirety of the significant area that was discussed?
That is a very good question, and I'm going to ask Brian to answer that question.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that MAPC, they put in their scope of work to identify the districts that were going to be involved. When the original concept went to them, and we were doing the downtown commercial district, C1 district, the general residential 5, the single-family residential 4, and the mixed business innovation district. Those there are pretty much everything within a half a mile circle of the train station. That takes in about 75% of the actual area. On the mapping that MAPC had, they had some what looked like little squiggly lines. That's actually a half a mile by road. That's the reason that was on there. I told her, please take that off, it's confusing a lot of people. Just go with the 5 zoning districts in general. If you think of it as a circle, with a radius of a half a mile also, either way. If you have concepts that involve a mile away from the downtown, that's fine. I mean, we're not going to, slap you on the hand and say you can't say that. The focus area is right in the downtown and in that surrounding neighborhoods, if you will.
All right, does that answer your question? Excellent. Does anybody else have any questions about March 7th? The forum? No? Greg?
I just have one quick
Yeah.
question.
Bruce hit it, the downtown split in two sections, 140 cuts right through. Is there any thought of coming this way a little bit farther and being selective to the areas that we're approaching, rather than just a massive, half-mile radius? Can we dial in, say, heading towards the Village Mall and coming this way? These are gonna be your potential growths coming, we're seeing it now. You have some undeveloped properties coming this way, or you're gonna be seeing them coming on the market shortly. Maybe we target some of these areas, in terms of the future growth too, because, like Bruce said, once you get into the downtown, to do the whole thing over, you gotta buy 10 properties. It's gonna be a 10-year plan. By the time you get it all dialed in, one guy's gonna die in the middle, so it's gonna go to probate. It's gonna be another 10 years by the time the whole thing's cleaned up. So let's be selective to the areas we go after. But I think the areas that we should potentially chase right now are the areas that have potential growth coming in front of us, because the lots are smaller, they're tighter, and they're trying to get more on them at this point. And everybody's gonna look for 100% coverage, which isn't gonna happen, but you just wanna plan it and schedule for controlled growth, not just full-blown. I don't know how many of you guys were here in the 80s and 90s, but I think Bruce and I were the only two that were part of this. And it was a pretty,
I've heard a lot about it.
let's just say there was a lot going on. It was the
Yeah.
fastest growing community in the
That's-
country
that's
for
right.
years.
That's right.
So we went through it, we grew it, I built in it, Bruce knows.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's just, I think maybe we stretch our wings this way too, just to put the feelers out.
I think that's a great comment. I'm going to throw it over to Jamie. He's got his hand up to answer that.
So through you, Madam Chair, so for the purposes of this study, there's a contract with MAPC because a year ago or so, the big priority for the state and the priority for the council and many in the community was to look at around the train station about what to do around there in a variety of ways. There's a scope of services with MAPC, with the jurisdiction that Brian just mentioned, that we're contractually obligated to look at as part of this study. And as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be recommendations that'll come out, and they're going to be I expect there to be very far-ranging ideas about what to do about zoning in general, in addition to those zoning districts. The state has begun the process. I like to believe it's not over yet in terms of their regulations around the train station, because what the state is asking cities and towns to do, from what we know in our professional circles, that is still going to be an ongoing discussion at the state, because there's not a lot of towns that are very happy with the guidance that has come out so far relative to the half mile around the train station. That being said, the good part about this is we are getting a third party to review this, and I think to Bruce's comments earlier, everybody's got to remember, we're looking at by right, we're looking at special permit issues. We've gotten a lot of feedback from people that are upset about special permit requirements, and I think the staff agrees with many of those things. So it's not just simply what's the visual and the vanity of downtown. The zoning is going to direct those issues, and what are those issues, like hopefully eliminating certain special permit requirements. Maybe that will incentivize people to take more. In terms of the question about spreading out the wings, Greg, there's nothing that prohibits any of us, this group, the staff, the planning board, the council, from just doing those things now. If people have ideas about what to do for C2 or other areas in town, in business zones, office zones, we can have those conversations whenever folks want. I don't think we necessarily need to do a large study. And then second, I would say, and finally, I would say, with the extra money that the council appropriated last year, we're doing these through grant funds for this state, for this study, but that's why those extra resources are there. To expand those ideas maybe, or look at other areas of town, and use this entire downtown study as a community conversation starter, which quite frankly just has really not happened very much. It's always been little tiny dinks and dunks, little changes here and there, and that's good. We don't want to say we don't want to do small changes, but if we're talking about bigger picture stuff, we can have those conversations with everybody or anybody at any point. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking if we could incorporate some of this portion of the study with the future of it. you got something to tie back to, is what I'm getting to. You got some leg to it to fall back on.
I see this study as something that we could use for other areas as well,
Yeah.
right?
We
So,
can target other areas
Yeah.
that could use.
I mean, maybe we
help,
could do them
too.
at the same time, maybe.
Yeah, just
But it's a-
throwing it out there as if it's another stepping stone to get what we're
It's
trying to
great.
get accomplished.
It's a great idea. Thank you for that.
Thank
I
you.
agree.
Yeah. Anyone else have a question about March 7th? Counselor Frangillo?
Less a question, more just a response to
Yeah.
to some of those.
Yeah.
That's,
If you want.
I think, I've talked a lot about, what we're trying to do as a town is bring enough money in with the land that we have, like through taxes, to pay for the services that we want. And one of the reasons why we focus on the center of town is because that's where we get the most value per acre and sort of per service that we provide. We get the most value when we focus on the downtown and incrementally grow out from there. If we spread out, which we have done in the 80s and 90s, that's how we get into the situation where we're in, where we are not bringing in enough money to service those areas. Even your quiet downtown that no one wants to go to is bringing in twice, sometimes 3 times as much per square foot than your, Franklin Village Mall, and then your, other areas on Route 140. So there's another reason to focus on the downtown, aside from offering, a vibrant and prosperous downtown that we all want.
Thank you, Counselor Frangillo. Okay, I think we are ready to move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Brian, and thank you to the EDC Plus Steering Committee. Thank you, Bruce, out there. And we will see everybody on Monday, March 7th, right? Yep.
Correct. Yep.
And now we're going to move on. If you guys want to hang out, you can hang out. If you don't, it's okay. We're going to move on to the second agenda item tonight, which is I asked for a downtown parking follow-up after our town council meeting on February 16th. So I'm going to hand it over to Jamie, I guess, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I threw this on, hoping we'd have a few minutes. I just wanted to give the opportunity for the councilors that were part of the discussion, particularly on the West Street residential concerns. Informative meeting at the council meeting. The council decided to move this issue to the EDC. And before I have the chief and the police department and other folks go out and start doing things, I thought it would be a good opportunity if the 4 members of the council, or if you want, to just give some direction about how individually all of you saw that conversation, and to help give the staff a little bit of guidance before we come before you again about what are some of the menu options that you think you're interested in hearing from the chief further.
Okay.
So, there was a lot of issues brought up at that. I think, just to recap, obviously there's been some residential concerns around some of the parking of some Dean students or some non-Dean students that might be parking in some spaces that aren't designated spaces. We found out the parking tickets in town are $15 per violation. We found out that you need to have a bunch of tickets before you can get towed. We talked about signage, we talked about bylaw restrictions, overnight parking. I just wanted to have a short conversation with folks to get any guidance from you about what I can instruct the chief to do to be prepared for any future meetings.
Okay, I have a couple of ideas. Does anybody else want to go first?
I think they all do.
Counselor Jones.
It's Joan.
Oh, sorry, Counselor Jones.
Thank you, ma'am. A lot was said at the town council meeting in regards to some obvious next step direction in regards to the downtown. I think, as it's been mentioned several times already, raising the ticket price is obviously gonna stir some pots. I think that's probably one of our best first steps. I think what I'd like to see, being the spring and everyone's gonna be moved around a little bit, they still have a few months left of school, before they have to leave. If we could collect some data, if it's possible, I know it's a short period of time, but if we were capable of raising the fee on those parking tickets, expedite the process of increasing that fee, will that take legislative action to do that? Or is that something we can automatically do?
It would likely be a bylaw amendment, yeah.
Okay.
We usually vote on fees.
Yeah.
So I think we should raise the ticket fees, and decrease the amount of tickets they get before they get towed, if that's something we have control over. So in other words, instead of, or is that the state?
Yeah, I think that's a more global state,
Okay.
state issue, yeah. But I'll check with the chief for sure, Counselor Jones.
Okay, I think that's a good first step, because I do think that would be a punch in the wallet that would definitely stir, especially the freshman students, who may be parking their vehicles on the streets in that neighborhood, who might rethink parking in that neighborhood more often if they're gonna get ticketed at that kind of a price. And definitely something that, we'll propose to the full council on getting some kind of legislative, action put in place, expedited, just so we can kind of get that moving. Ideally, what I'd like to do is see some kind of data that would back that up. I do think that will scare them a little bit. One of the suggestions that was mentioned at the full council level was the idea of fixing up some of our signage. I think we definitely need to look into expediting the suggestions that the lieutenant had suggested
Riley.
during the council meeting.
Yeah.
Those are probably the first two things I'd like to see. Other than that, I think we're gonna have to wait until spring to see how things start to shake out a little bit more. The winter was obviously a little tough because of the snow and other stuff, and I understand people's concerns in regards to trash pickup and trying to keep their cars out on the roads, and the Dean students could be a pain, noise issue. I think my only last suggestion, really only had a few things, was to ask the police chief if it's possible to have some additional patrollings of those neighborhoods, just maybe to check the numbers on the vehicles that the neighbors are reporting are parking in those places, as well as any noise issues that they have, just kind of step up police presence a little bit, just to maybe scare the students a little bit. That's about it.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Jones. Counselor Frangelo, did you have your hand up?
Did, yeah. I think he identified the three, but the three that I had, sort of buckets of things to consider. One is signage, both for clarity of parking, but also perception, right? Continually, we'll see studies that come in and say, we actually have enough parking, people just don't know where it is, right? So clearing perception is gonna be key. Penalties, increasing the fee, and possibly looking at towing. And the third would be a permit, some sort of process by which you get a right to park in a certain place, right? When you have more demand for a good than there is supply of it, then you need to put a price on it to correct the market. And I think you can do that without, in a fair way.
Okay, Counselor,
I guess I have a question. Would it be possible to have a permit and say the permit parking, if you have a permit, you don't have to follow signs, or like if you're residential parking? If you have if you're a resident, you can get a permit, and then that's different than if you're non-resident. I mean, you can still park there if you're non-resident at the correct times, but if you have a sticker.
you mean like a sticker for overnight parking, maybe?
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, sorry.
So ultimately, ultimately, I think in a lot of our view, there's a couple dynamics with the sticker and the permit. I truly believe we're making a mountain out of a molehill. There's more parking than we've ever had in downtown Franklin, and that's a different dynamic to Councilor Frangilla's point. You know, the supply and demand is actually the issue. There is far greater supply than demand. And I would take that to the Farrars lot, the municipal lot behind Dean Bank, all of the parking there. There's just so much parking. It's really a proximity and a human behavior issue, I think, more than anything else. So when we get into parking systems, we could do a parking permit, Councilor Sheridan, like you mentioned. And I'll have the chief cost it out, just so folks can see, but this is not cheap. Because then you have to have dedicated staff, you have to deal with the policing of it, and you're probably gonna make more people unhappy because now they have to go down to the police station to do 3 pieces of mail, and then we all know the dynamic. We were all there one day, right, where you go down to the city hall and you don't have the mail, and the parking clerk says, "Oh, sorry, you have 2 pieces of mail. This one doesn't count, so you have to go stand in line again tomorrow with 40 people." It's probably not going to be as bad as Boston, right? But so I'll have him cost it out for sure, the parking permit system. But you could do that, Councilor Sheridan. You absolutely could have that system.
You can continue, yeah?
Yeah, I actually agree. I do my own studies as I live right there, and there's plenty of parking.
Yeah.
And as far as like relative stuff, the Dean kids aren't there on Christmas and Thanksgiving, so
Yeah.
so when relatives come to visit, that's not an issue.
That's a good point.
I just thought of that after the last meeting, that we've had people for Thanksgiving, and it's not an issue, because for the most part, the Dean college is out there.
I know.
And to Councilor Sheridan's point, one of the reasons when you look at the bylaw, and I made sure it was clear to the chief, right now the bylaw has 8 to 2, 8 to 12, there's different zones, right? And obviously, we did those mainly to deal with commuter-related issues.
Right.
But the other issue we had was exactly what you just pointed out, which is, you gotta be careful. We can change that area of town and create a new zone with new time requirements. There's a lot of flexibility we can do, but one of the things that you'll hear about in other neighborhoods is, I don't want parking restrictions after noon, or after 10, or after 2, because of that exact point. People are visiting, sisters and brothers come over, and they just want the free spots right in front of their house. Why do I have to go move my car 4 times? So, but we can work through with the EDC on all those issues in terms of the data that the police have, in terms of, and they've done down there quite a bit to see exactly the human behavior element, more from a qualitative perspective of just like, what's the behavior of people? And it's pretty obvious from what the chief says that kids are just looking to get in the dorm, they run out, move their car once, they run back in, and then they leave, or whatever the dynamic is. So it just clearly is a college student problem of just some college kids trying to cut down the walk time on the walkway. I was down there the other day, and there are a lot of spots from the edge of a space with no parking to the curb, and it feels like, from what the police are saying, that those are the issues. So we may be able to look at striping, something else to designate and make sure that visual is there for folks, that they're not parking between that space, which ends up being a full space. So the car seems to fit, but it's just, if they looked up, the sign would say no parking from here to the curb.
Right.
And it just appears they're not looking up.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, maybe some of the signage goes a long way too. Maybe
Yeah.
time limit, 15-minute time limit on it, that way
You could do that too.
you try to push them along so they're not taking advantage of it, go in a class, wait an hour and a half, come back out, ditch the car and go. Maybe a 15-20-minute time frame on it could help, just to move them along.
We did do that, to Greg's point, very successfully in front of the library, where we had the same problem, and people were always saying, I don't want to walk all the way across from the lot. And we put those 2 spots in on the edge of School Street that have
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And everybody in the audience is nodding their head because they've used the space and they like it.
I always go across the street, even if there's space. I just always walk across. I don't know. Well, I have a, so I agree with Councilor Jones. I think we should raise the fines. I was thinking of personally, I was thinking kind of a tiered fine. So if the first one is 50, the second is 75, the third is 100 and a tow. That was just like, I'm thinking like, whoa, how can we make this serious? I think maybe extend the 2-hour parking limit to later on in the day, so that they're not there from like 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning. Then maybe that would help. I don't know. I know Lieutenant Riley was awesome. He has so many great suggestions. The signage is definitely one. It's very confusing. We need to help out people that way. There's also, I know that Lisa Pian is here on the call, but she suggested that we have somebody that actually does ticketing regularly, like that's their job. I don't know if we can do that again. And since now that we're after the pandemic, like through the pandemic, people weren't using the train, parking at all. Now that the pandemic is hopefully going to be over soon, we still aren't going to be that same normal, everybody goes down, parks, gets on the train. People aren't going to need that spot every single day. So I know that we've talked about this a little bit, about maybe changing the way we rent the spaces to people. Do we do a one-day thing? Do we do a weekly thing? And that might free up some more space.
Just talked to
Jamie.
Lieutenant Riley yesterday about it, and the staff down at the PD for a few months has been looking at some of the, a one-day fee, a weekly pass, a monthly pass, a quarterly, and an annual. And they're looking into some kiosks, some solar power kiosks to manage those. We did do an analysis on that about 5 years ago, and actually we were going to lose money because of the cost of the fees and the cost of the service. But that's when when the supply and demand, we had limited supply for a huge demand for a quarterly commuter rail pass, and we had to hold a lottery just to make sure
Right.
people had a fair bite at the apple. We always had probably 10 to 20 more applicants than spaces. But obviously that dynamic has changed, and now I think is a great opportunity to revisit that. So Lieutenant Riley and Chief Lynch, we just talked about it yesterday, and they are going to
Okay.
start to look back at what technology is out there so we can try to enhance that a bit.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Is there anyone
Melanie,
on?
I got some experience. Melanie, I got some experience with Dean parking,
Yeah,
if you want to hear it. Listen, back in the day, I owned a towing business in town. And Dean used to call all the time and it wasn't that people were parked on West Street, but people just parked in their lot that didn't have it didn't have a sticker or anything else like that. And I got to tell you, I made a fortune up there towing cars out of there. And I got to tell you that I don't think I ever towed the same car twice, because once they got towed and they had to call their parents, they either had to come and get the car or they had to fork up the money.
Right.
I can tell you for a fact that I don't think we ever got anybody twice. I don't know what the Mass General Law says about how many times you got to give them a break before you tow the car. I think you can tow it any time the police department orders it towed. But, but on private, in Dean, I towed a lot of cars out of there, and I never towed the same one twice that I can remember. So, once they pay that fee one time, they'll think twice about it. And from what I read in the minutes of the meeting, evidently Dean has plenty of parking up off of Hillside Road. It's just that the kids don't want to walk that far. And but once they pay the tow fee, the tow fee and the storage charge until they come get their vehicle out, they'll think twice about parking in the wrong place again. So just something to think about.
It's true.
I know it's true.
He's
All right, thank you for that. I know Lisa's
You're
out there. Lisa, do you have any comments?
Unmute, Lisa.
Okay.
I think you're unmuted now. There you are.
Yes, I have a few comments. I know Mel and I talked about this. I mean, parking has been an issue for a long time in discussion. I mean, Jeff Nutting, did so much when we took the meters out, and there was so many meetings and so many discussions. But as I said to Mel this afternoon, as the downtown changes, parking has to change. You can't just say, well, we do it this way, and then 3 years later, we're going to keep doing it the same way. So I think most of you know, but maybe some of you on this call don't know, we have 6 new businesses downtown. We have the bakery, we have the bookstore, we have a clothing store, we have a coin store, we have a gift store. We have a lot of great new businesses coming in. We have a lot of great businesses that have been there for years. So there's going to be a lot more people coming downtown. So I don't have any comments about West Street, the residential area, but I do get phone calls and complaints regarding East Central Street. Because again, we have some new businesses, and so there's more people parking down there. And now that the pandemic hopefully is on its way out, more people are coming out with the nice weather. So a couple of thoughts that I had, and I went and spoke to some businesses today about, what their thoughts are. First of all, I'm sure most of you know, there's quite a few buildings that don't have parking for their tenants. And they happen to be on, East and West, East Central Street and Main Street. I won't go through those, but the partnership is in one of the buildings where we have parking, but people are parking in our spots because there's not enough for some of the other buildings on that same block. So there's a lot of shared parking. Obviously H&R Block has a busy season. They have 5 or 6 clients coming. But then, in September, H&R Block isn't an issue. When the Dean kids are here, they take a lot of parking. When in the summer, there's a lot of parking because the Dean kids are gone. But anyway, a couple suggestions. One, some larger signs that the 2-hour parking. I think people have to be reminded again. Yes, the Dean College students, we see those plates, we know who they are. I'm not sure why we have any kind of overnight parking. I think part of it is some of the students park there. And then in the morning, if they're sleeping in 7 or 8 o'clock, their car is still there. And that affects, the bakery and some of the other businesses. So I think there could be a message on the bottom of the sign that there's no overnight parking. So, that needs to go away. We don't really need overnight parking on East Central Street. So larger signs, I think the Ferreras lot needs to be looked at and shuffled a bit because of, like everyone said, there's not as much need for the commuter parking. I went in and spoke to the employee at the cell phone place on East Central Street, and he's one of the ones, because it's not just Dean College students, there's people that allow their employees to park on Main Street and East Central Street, which is terrible, right? So this, the young kids, their employees are parking there and moving his car every 2 hours, which, is allowed. So I went in and, I talked to him and he's like, well, where am I parking? Because his building doesn't have parking. He doesn't have a parking spot in the back. So, you go to Ferrera's parking lot and yeah, there's parking in the afternoon, right? But he gets there at, 9:30. I don't know what time he gets there, 9:30, 10 o'clock, whatever. So I think there can be some ideas about where those employees can park and let the businesses know. Say, your employees have an option to park here. So again, if we need to re-educate, there's a lot of new businesses downtown. Some of these employees are not from Franklin. They might be coming in from Rhode Island. They might be coming from other towns. So they don't know where the parking is. I think there needs to be a re-education of that. The increased ticketing, I think if you're talking about, again, the West Street situation, and you're talking about Dean College students, I would agree, but I don't think we want a $50 ticket for somebody who might have stayed a little over the 2 hours in the bakery because they were having lunch and they come out for a $50 ticket. That's going to get bad press for our downtown. Remember, we want people to come downtown. When they used to get the $15 parking ticket because they didn't put the extra quarter in for the meters, people were livid. So I think you just have to be careful. I think we need to get it out to residents that ticketing is going to increase. There's going to be more, whether it's a meter maid or a police officer, there's going to be more ticketing. Give people a heads up so they know, you might have parked over 2 hours before, but now you're going to get ticketed. Again, I think you got to watch the price of that ticket. I do agree with people that have second and third offenses, increase that, right? Because they're taking advantage and then tow them. But I don't think that's gonna be the mom with the 2 kids at the bakery or at the bookstore. You know, we wanna, you know, get to the people who are taking advantage of that, maybe parking overnight.
Okay, Lisa,
Yeah,
we're running out of time, so I'm
Okay.
gonna have to cut you off for tonight.
all right.
But with this,
I wanted to get all that in. You had asked to
But
join the meeting, so I wanted
this-
to make sure I got all that
this
in there.
conversation will continue. I think Jamie has enough information now to go talk to the chief and Lieutenant Riley and know what we want to see happen, or at least a good discussion. Is that true, Jamie?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, and with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Signify.
Aye.
Oh, like Bruce is still there, but bye, Bruce.
You're gonna post
You guys didn't have to stay, but it was nice that you stayed.
Beth lives downtown too. Where do you live?
Off of Maple.
Oh, I get to meet college students in front of my house. You know what I do is I go on